Recently, I saw a cartoon. The cartoon showed a headstone of a recently departed gentleman, had his name at the top of the headstone, and below the name there was just one sentence, and it said, "Free at last from all forms of electronic and digitally connected data." What was more amusing about the headstone was that the family had created a headstone with an embedded LCD, and they could change the message digitally daily. So such is the world we live in, right? Devices everywhere. In the early 1990s, the computer industry began to work on ways to create security for data in transit, for data at rest. They came up with a lot of solutions, including secure socket layers, SSL, or transport layer security, TLS. And then in 1998, the U.S. government had done a bake-off for an encryption algorithm that they could turn into a standard for doing business with the U.S. federal government. They named it Advanced Encryption Standard, AES, and combined that with other technologies a short time later that created what we know today as IPsec, Internet Protocol Security. This has been the standard for the last 20 years. That standard requires about 3 megabytes of libraries. It requires 14 processes, 100 algorithms to process, to engage with that security. This is an IoT device, an Internet of Things device that connects small functionality on small platforms that creates a lot of data that blesses our lives in many, many ways. This device right here has less than, this is a class 0 device. These devices are classed by various classes based on their operating capacity and computing capacity. This is a class 0 device, the smallest of all. It has less than 100 kilobytes of operating capacity on this small device. You have 3 megabytes in libraries for encryption, for security, that cannot fit on something that has less than 100 kilobytes total operating capacity. That is a big hole. So the market for these kinds of IoT devices is growing exponentially. So the market for this, by many, there's numbers all over the board, but many studies indicate that we'll have 75 billion of these devices deployed within the next 5 years. There's 20 billion now, and 95% of them are what are called in the clear. That is, no security on them whatsoever. So it's little wonder that the growth of these devices is unprecedented, and so is the hacking of these devices, the fastest in history at hacking. In fact, one report recently came out that showed that 35%, think about this, 35% of all internet traffic today is cyber attacks. And it exponentially increased over the last 2 years because of the deployment of these kinds of devices. So, this is a major problem. And then enter quantum computing on the other side of the spectrum. And we don't have time today to talk about why or how, but many experts believe that quantum computing will break AES. It'll take around 6,000 qubits to break an AES 256 encryption. That means data in our financial systems, our energy systems, national defense, government, and a host of other things will be at risk, and may be at risk now. In fact, the NSA has advised not to use AES 128 now because it is at risk. So as a result of this, the National Quantum Act was put through Congress and rapidly enacted earlier this year to start providing background and support, $2.2 billion to support the development of quantum computing and quantum era security going forward. So seeing this landscape, the smallest of IoT devices, and the coming freight train of quantum, our company, AgilePQ, saw that hole, and we provided a solution to plug it. Our engineers developed a system that can fit on a Class 0 device, any Class 0 device, and leave plenty of operating space for the native function of the device. and it can survive in a quantum computing era. How did we do that? Well, largely what we did is looked at an IPsec solution that has a very large operating code and a very small key, and we flipped that on its head. We created a system with a very small operating code and a much larger key. We built a system with lightweight devices, computing devices in mind. So our core product has 2 kilobytes of operating code. We use 80% less battery power than an IPsec system. We are plus or minus 8x faster than an IPsec system. We use 1/10 of the data to connect that's needed by a TLS. Our key space is over 400 orders of magnitude larger than current IPsec technology. We can secure data at motion and data at rest, and we present a new paradigm for enterprise security in the future. Technology's been tested at UCSD, UNSW, Ponemon Institute, and many other places, and we're commercial. We launched our product in 2018. We have now secured contracts to place our technology on over 300 million devices in the next 3 years. We have gone to market in smart cities and automotive and retail and many other industries. We're negotiating contracts now that will double that amount in the future. We are negotiating with current enterprise security companies to secure the edge where they cannot. We are negotiating with large cellular carriers as wireless to provide security to their customers using wireless as their protocol. We are negotiating with systems integrators, multinational chip companies to add it to IoT chips in the future and so forth. And now, yes, the U.S. federal government has contacted us, and we are in discussions with them primarily right now about providing post-quantum security, and we'll take it from there. 2 weeks ago, we had an entire team from our company in Washington, D.C., team of 9 or 10 people. We had 24 meetings with House and Senate, House members and senators, with a couple of dozen departments of the United States federal government, and we are moving forward with those discussions there. So we do not begin and end with just one product. All of this is a work in process. What we have today may, with the advancement of computers, find solutions tomorrow for the dark side. We must constantly be vigilant about that. But one thing's for sure, at this conference we talk a lot about keeping a leap ahead. That is our mantra. Always keep one leap ahead. Thank you.